Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about seeing spirits. So let me ask you, have you ever seen a full bodied apparition of one of your loved ones who's passed? Or maybe you just saw some sparkly lights and wondered if it was something from the spirit world. Maybe you're like so many people that see something go by out of their peripheral vision, but when they turn to look, it's suddenly not there. Let me tell you something. You are most likely already seeing spirits if any of these things has occurred for you. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about seeing spirits. I'm going to tell you about my course called Mediumship Scrying and why we even want to see spirits in the first place. What is the whole point? Why do people long to reconnect and know that their loved one is around? So let's dive in. I'm going to open up the chat room. Hi, Dale. Welcome. It's such a pleasure to see you as well. Thank you for joining me again, Dale. All right, you guys, I'm so excited about this. I know some of you take your time to come in, and anytime you come is fine with me. I just want to make sure that I don't skip anything. All right, so excuse me. Let's start with this. Why do people want to see spirits? So many people come to me asking, why can't I see spirits? And I'll tell you, it's usually when somebody is carrying very, very heavy grief that they're literally blocking all of their abilities to see spirit. We've talked about this before, but the vibration, the emotional frequency of grief is only 75. And the vibration of love is 500, enlightenment being 700. So we want to get between 500 and 700 in terms of frequency in order to connect more easily with the afterlife. So many times when you're deep in despair and really carrying a lot of heavy grief, you have literally numbed out your sixth sense and all of your other senses. So you're kind of using your resources at this point just to survive, just to wake up. And you're not going to be in a high enough vibration, typically, where you can perceive spirit visits. So that's the primary reason that people can't see spirits. This is an innate, natural thing for people to experience, even though you're not a medium. Most people around the world experience the spirit world at some point or another. And perhaps it just happened to be the right time, the right vibration, the right set of circumstances that they had that visit or that vision of a loved one or another spirit. So, oh, there's some more. Yes. Okay. I'm just checking out the chat room again. Thank you, Dale. Okay. And so other people, if they're not wondering why I can't see spirits, they're asking me, how do I know if what I'm seeing is real? I can't even tell you how common that is. People photographing spirits, having firsthand experiences, being touched, hearing voices, or seeing their loved one in an apparition, and they still come to me and say, am I imagining this? That's because so much of the mainstream has taught that it is not normal or natural, that it's supernatural, right? And that only a few people on earth have these gifts. Where, while it's true, mediums like me can see spirits and can tap in easily with the spirit world, there was somebody in my family line, obviously, that passed these genes to me, but also I have done my work in this lifetime through diligent training and many hours, weeks, days, years of development. In fact, I had a house in Wisconsin, in Menominee, Wisconsin, big old Victorian house, and I actually had a room for people to come to do mediumship circles, but I also had a psychomantium, and we'll get back to that in a moment. I had everything in there because I had created the Afterlife Research Society. I was constantly learning and pushing the boundaries to be able to teach people how to see spirits. So that's just one of my very big passions in life. And I do know that everybody can learn to see spirits. So when it comes to people wondering if they're going crazy or if what they're seeing is real, let me tell you the deeper reasoning behind that desire. People want to connect with the afterlife because it validates that the afterlife is real. It also brings comfort because then they know their loved one is safe and that they're okay. It also can help you dissolve fear around your own death because you know you're not going to just turn into nothing. You know there's an actual place that you go, that you will be around your other loved ones who are already on the other side waiting. So it can also bring a lot of comfort to those that are grieving, just to help them feel like they're reconnected with their loved one again. So it has a lot to do with the healing nature for you and also for the spirit world. And for many, it awakens their spiritual gifts. In fact, all the many years that I did paranormal research and investigation and working out in the field, talking to hundreds, if not thousands, of paranormal investigators, I would always ask them why they were drawn to this. And there was only two reasons. Number one, they lost a loved one and they needed to learn and understand as much as they could about the afterlife. And number two, if they hadn't lost a close loved one, then they had had a random ghostly experience. And having had that experience created a deep longing and desire to re experience it again, to have another profound spiritual experience. So that's why most people get into the paranormal world and start working with teams. It's one of those two reasons. Oh, hi there. Welcome. Um, oh my goodness, I can't see your name. There we go. K Mouse 98. Hello there. Husband and I see his mom and stepdad all the time in our hallway. Amazing. I'm wondering, did they happen to live with you at some point? That would be pretty common if they had lived with you or if they had spent a lot of time with you at your house. But that's wonderful. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. If you see movement out of the corner of your eye, this is how your spiritual sight first begins to activate. Spirit comes through your peripheral vision, and this is where your analytical brain is less involved. So there's been experiments, the military trains this way to always pay attention to the movement, right? Because this is real, but when you turn to look, sometimes things become camouflaged. The front of your eye has a lot of filters on it. In fact, the front of your eye blocks out infrared and ultraviolet light. So the peripheral vision is the only place that you could perceive that energy. And that is the frequency of light spectrum that spirits move around in. So when you're seeing something moving on the side of your eye and you turn to look and it's not there, that's because your eyeball is literally filtering it out. It could be standing right in front of you and you couldn't see it. So the peripheral vision is something you really want to trust. That's how you first begin to perceive spirit. So if you're having those experiences, trust them, start writing them down or paying attention to where you're experiencing them as you're developing your mediumship and ability to see spirit. Dale says, this discussion couldn't be more perfect because today, as I was laying on my bed, I felt what was seemed to be that someone rested a hand upon my head. I've had that happen before. I can't explain it. I love that, Dale. You know, that's usually going to be a very close loved one. Um, because we have opened our energy to those we love. So we're more receptive to them in the spirit world. Whereas a random ghost, it would take a lot more, and they're not really interested in showing love and affection. Sometimes they'll pinch you or poke you if you're on a haunted investigation or a paranormal site. But when you're getting something really sweet like that, that's somebody who loves you. So I think you might know who that is. Um, Okay. So some of you might see sparkly lights or orbs. These are high vibrational spirits. trying to get attention, which are often angels or loved ones checking in. And that's why we love the orbs in our photos, you guys. But you can see those with your physical eyes as well. In fact, a lot of children will actually see the sparkly lights as their first step to seeing the spirit world before a form takes place, before an apparition comes into view. It'll be the sparkly lights. So, whenever you're seeing that, just allow yourself to gaze into the sparkly lights and see what happens. That will kind of determine where you are in your own development in terms of seeing spirits. Okay, now then there's the shadow people. These are not always negative. They can be ancestral spirits or guides waiting for permission to connect. Now, I had a friend years ago who had surgery, and when he came out of surgery, he suddenly had spiritual vision. It was immediate. And he was really freaked out because what he saw first was dark shadow beings. And because of his background, being raised Catholic, he assumed they were demons. He thought they were dark entities, that they were negative. And then as he developed more and post operation, began to see color and began to see light. But oftentimes, the first spectrum that you're seeing may be dim, and that's okay. So, not everything that appears as a shadow being is dark in energy. It's not negative, in other words. So, that could very well be your first stage. If you're seeing things moving about the house, you may be able to start seeing spirits shortly after. That might be your indicator that you're developing your eyesight for seeing spirits. Now, when I see angels, I will see them moving around the house. I see lots of loved ones, especially if I've done a training where I've had a lot of people in my presence and our energy is super high, my environment is super high. Days afterwards, I will continue to see light beings walking around, and it's amazing. I absolutely love it. My daughter and I just got so comfortable with that. Everyone was always coming to our house for trainings and retreats, and we just got really used to seeing them. In fact, she'd go, "Hey, Mom, you've got a light orb over your head." And I'm like, "Oh, you've got a light being walking past you." They just be all over the place. So those are mostly going to be angelic or very high vibrational spirit guides or ancestors that really love you. So the white ones are going to be that. But if you're not seeing them, you're seeing them as dark ones, don't worry just yet. If it was truly a dark spirit, you'd be having nightmares and mishaps. So don't just assume that it's dark if you're only seeing the shadow. It could very well be your first level of development in spiritual sight. Okay, and I'm going to read a couple more before I go back to the chat room. Okay, then there's those of you that see full body apparitions. Yeah, that's the goal. I love that. I love, love, love that. It is so exciting. This is rare, but life changing. Seeing a loved one in spirit often brings an emotional release and for many, a permanent shift in consciousness. I mean, you just can't see a loved one and then wonder if you're going crazy. I mean, it's so profound. It awakens you. And like I said with the paranormal people, that's often what created a deep desire to dive into doing paranormal work because they just couldn't get enough after that. It like seeds or plants a desire so deep in your soul that you just need to be around that energy and find out more about it, and have more experiences. It's quite beautiful to come between the physical and spiritual realm. It's a rush of emotion. It's a high vibration. It makes you feel so connected to the divine and to life and the afterlife. So it's a beautiful experience. I can see why paranormal people are drawn to it for that reason. Okay. Now, I talked a little bit about infrared and ultraviolet light, but my paranormal groups, we used to experiment with different color lights as well. Sometimes we'd set up all the cameras and gear and then put red lights in the room. And in the room beside it, we'd put blue lights or green lights, and we would play with that. We'd research to see which room gets the most activity or the activity that we are able to record or experience on our devices. So playing around with different light frequencies is really interesting when it comes to the paranormal. And a little tip for you guys too. I had a wonderful device. It's very inexpensive, but it's a laser light that's green and it puts a grid of dots on the wall. So if you have that in a stationary location and you have the grid up on the wall, you can most definitely see etheric beings walking in front of the lights. I mean, because it's like it casts a shadow because it blocks the light from the laser. So that's a really amazing thing to have. And like I said, very inexpensive. You can usually get them at Ghost Hunter store or any paranormal device supply store. So check those out. Those are really great to have. Okay, and if you want to learn how to actually see spirits the way that I teach, I'm not going to actually teach you the mediumship scrying in this video because I do have a course on that. So if you're interested in that, I will put the link below this video. It's a phenomenal course. Okay. And also, you guys, let me know in the comments if you have seen spirits. Let me know if you've seen shadow people, twinkly lights, orbs, etheric beings walking around. Let me know. Just fill up that chat room and I will get to your questions. I'll kind of zoom back and make sure that I get through all of them before the end. Okay. So there's something that's really special that happens when you see a loved one. And it's a shift because you no longer wonder if the afterlife is real. You know it's real. And that is profound. To be in a state of knowing is very, very powerful to live your life in rather than wondering or doubting or questioning. So that's what this kind of experience provides for people. And like I said earlier, your fear of death diminishes and you start living with more clarity, joy, and purpose. It's like, wee, okay, I never die. I literally will always be here. I'm eternal. And so I may as well just stop worrying so much and start having fun and enjoying myself because I'll be here now and I'll be here again and I'll be here after. So it's continual, you guys. So having a personal experience really fills you with that kind of knowingness. It's very grounding and it's a good place to come from when you're living your life so that you're not always watching the clock and counting the years you may have left and worrying about the end. There truly is no end. Okay. And I just love it so much. And that's why I have really enjoyed teaching people how to connect with the other side, how to develop their mediumship, their spiritual side. It just is amazing for me. And it's not a gift for a select few. It's a gift for anybody who wants to journey down that road of discovery and development. So, and I'd like to mention this. I don't know if you're familiar with the ancient Greeks. They had a way of scrying that was different than what I teach in my course, but I wanted to share it here. So the ancient Greeks would go down long corridors or into caves or descend underground where it was really dark. And they would scry into like large copper bowls of water. And the water would just be totally still like a mirror. And they would scry into that in these dark spaces where they were having sensory deprivation because there were no other distractions. And this is how they would connect with their loved ones and have a spiritual sight of their loved one. So the ancient Greeks had rituals for that so long ago, as did many cultures. Now, the distinguished Dr. Raymond Moody, I know you know him. He is a prolific afterlife author, speaker, presenter. He uses the psychomantium. Now, earlier I said I had a psychomantium in my house. I actually gleaned that idea after seeing an episode of Dr. Raymond Moody where he would walk people into his psychomantium that were bereaved, that he'd talk to them first about their loved one to raise their energy and vibration. And then he'd put them in a room with a large mirror and a dim light, like a candle. And they would just gaze into the mirror until they had an experience. And his clients were having experiences. I thought that was profound. So, of course, I built one in my house and I wanted to try that out. I didn't have a large room that I could use just for this purpose. So what I did is I used a closet. It was a nice size closet in my Victorian house. I just took all the shelving out and all the clothing and storage stuff, and I made it into a small room where I could shut the door and it would be completely dark. Then I put a mirror and a little chair and a candle, and that's basically all I had room for in there. But I would go in there and sit, and I would use that mirror to scry. My daughter and I also used a larger mirror that leaned against the wall. We had some success with that, but it's best if you can be in more of an isolated environment so that you're not distracted. If it's silent, then you don't need your ears for hearing cars and traffic. You can actually use them more to tune in with the spirit world. And if you don't have other things to look at visually, you can more accurately pierce the veil and see spirits. So that's why sensory deprivation is very helpful to allow you to start seeing into the spiritual realm. So the way that I learned mediumship scrying, and that's what my course is on. Again, the link is below this video. I actually first learned this in 2007 from the late Alan Arcieri, who was my first mediumship mentor. He was a wonderful medium down in Florida, and I attended all his classes. And that class just blew me away. I never stopped using it or teaching it from that point forward since 2007. So I have literally taught well over hundreds, I'm sure thousands by now, how to mediumship scry. And the interesting thing is, if you talk to other psychics and mediums and healers, they know of all the different ways you can scry. You can scry into mirrors, you can scry into water, you can scry into oil, the clouds, all of things. But they don't know about mediumship scrying. This is entirely different. And I will say that it is profound. I used to do quite a lot of public events at my house, and I would have seasoned professional mediums come over, and they would leave blown away after an event because of what they were seeing and experiencing. So it is an amazing, an amazing technique, and I'm very thankful for Alan teaching me this and allowing me to be able to pass it on to you guys. So when I learned it, I also learned that it was teachable and repeatable, because immediately after class, I went home and taught my husband that I had at the time and my daughter. And immediately they were both able to do it. And then his children came for the summer and they were all able to do it. And then our friends came over for a dinner party and all of them were able to do it. And that's how it continued to spread. I started teaching it to everybody. But I also started taking pictures while people were doing it. And that's really what makes it so validating, because not only are you seeing through the veil, but a third party can actually photograph that and catch it on film. So for the skeptic out there that is like, oh, maybe you're just, your eyes are crossing or you're seeing something that's not there. Well, you can't make up what the camera is taking pictures of. And I love anything that I can validate, because then I can really put my stamp on it and say, this is a real technique, this is effective, and this will work. So I love to share that tidbit of information with you guys. I teach it to people in a way that is very safe and very healing, because most people that want to learn it aren't just curious. Like I said, they're usually bereaved. They've usually lost somebody very close to them, and that has placed their desire in their heart to be able to connect and to see their loved one again. So I do teach, all the protection and And all of that is very important as part of the ritual of mediumship scrying. Okay, so if you've ever wondered whether or not you could see a spirit, or if you already have, trust and know that you most likely have already had experiences. Maybe you just didn't recognize that that's what was occurring to you at the time. All right, so again, I'm going to go into the chat room and see if you guys have comments or questions for me. And again, I love them. I love your comments and questions. Okay, so I'm going to back it up here. Okay. Okay, Dale, in regard to her comment earlier, Dale writes, I was wide awake, awaiting a call from my mother's doctor after surgery, and this woman appeared. Ooh, she was full-bodied, not transparent, an older woman. She just stood there. Didn't know her. Very interesting, Dale. You know, that's really cool. I love that. You're going to have to do some meditating on that and see if something comes to you. It could very likely be another ancestor of yours. Somebody that has care for you, though. I do feel an emotional bond. It does not feel like a random ghost. So that'll be interesting to see who that is. And I was going to say something else about that. Oh, I know. Just on Easter, like a day or two before Easter, I went to a cafe with my cousin who was in town and sat next to him, or sat with his family. And my neighbor and her husband were sitting across from me, and they looked like they were in a business meeting with two other men. And I saw them very clearly, and we sat right beside them. Our tables were like this far apart. And it looked like they were in a business meeting. So I just said hello, but I didn't stay to talk. And then later on that day, I asked her, I said, she said she was with her business partner and her husband. And I said, well, who was the fourth man? And she looked at me like, what fourth man? And I'm like, the other man. You were with two men. You were here and your husband is here. And then the two men were here on the table. And she's like, no, there's only three men. And I go, no, there was four. Now, I've been mediumship scrying for a long time, but it didn't take me very long using that technique where I was able to see spirits regularly out and about in the world. So that technique helps you develop your spiritual sight. So you can turn it on and off, but it happens pretty regularly for me. So I love that. Anyways, I told her, no, there was definitely another man. I said, well, did you lose somebody? And all of a sudden it went like this for her. And she was like, oh my God, her father had passed a long time ago, but right around Easter. And so Easter is always significant to her and a difficult holiday to get through because it reminds her of her father. So this year he actually came in a very physical way to have breakfast with them and connect with them. And how wonderful that I was able to walk in and see him so that she would know he was actually there. So I just love that. That kind of stuff will happen, you guys. You develop this skill and you're gonna be blown away by what kind of things you start to experience. Okay. Denise says, I wish I could see my fur babies. I miss them so much. Denise, this helps you to see your fur babies too. I have seen ghost cats, my dog. I've had many pets, and so I've seen those specific pets, but I've also seen other ghost animals. Yeah, it's amazing. And I love getting those visits. I absolutely love it. Okay. Yeah, I read about like the ghost cat experience in my book, Setting Spirits Free. That was pretty interesting. Walked right into the wall, and my husband at the time, his hand went right through when he tried to pet it. It was crazy. Okay. Okay, SB. I've seen Sasquatch, orbs, floating dismembered eye or disembodied eyes, and shadow person. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. One time, my friend I was with, we were doing a paranormal show. This is many years ago in Florida. We were doing Saturday Night Paranormal, and I was the guest on their show. Afterwards, we left there, and we felt like we had an attachment, but we were both so exhausted, we didn't clear off. We just went to bed. and we kept hearing knocking, like very loud, and we're like, oh, stop it. And I just threw the covers over my head because I was irritated and exhausted. I just was so tired. Otherwise, I'd normally just get my connection and clear it. But I just wanted to stay asleep. And my friend was in the adjoining room. She actually heard the knocking. She sat up out of bed, and there was a disembodied arm. It was like from the elbow to the finger, and it was flipping her off. And it flew from the corner all the way up to her face. So she had to do a clearing. In the morning, she told me about this, and I was like, what? So, like, literally the arm, the disembodied arm, all it can do is knock. So it was knocking all night until she cleared it. And in the morning, when she told me, I did a secondary clearing just to be sure, to make sure everything was gone. But that was hilarious. Yeah, spirits can show up in so many different ways. And Sasquatch. I love seeing Sasquatch or having an experience with Sasquatch. Hi, Lydia. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. Okay. Dale says that the spirit, she startled me. I was wondering if she came to bring comfort while I was worried about my mother in surgery. I still don't know who she was. Yeah, Dale, you're going to have to ask for some more information on that. Maybe when you go to sleep, ask for her identity to be revealed. If this is tied to your mother in surgery, I have a feeling that it's a female associated with your mother, like her mother, or even her mother, your mother's grandmother. So, but there's a feminine tie to you, and it is very loving. So it is definitely in your family line. That might be who it was. And, you can always muscle test it to find out. So there's some little tricks that you can do to find out if you're waiting for an answer and not receiving it accurately. Okay. Lydia says, I've been seeing my beloved fur baby in spirit quite frequently now. My heart is full. Lydia, that's amazing. I love that. Yeah, isn't that comforting? I just love having that happen. It's like it just kind of takes away that pain and what we perceive as a disconnection. There truly is no disconnection, but our mind interprets death that way, and that's why we suffer so much in grief. But when we have our connection to the other side, when we see spirit, when we know we're having an experience that's real, suddenly we're reconnected again. And it's just mind-blowing. It's like you don't even have to have it every day, but just once that reconnect happens, something clicks up here and you're like, oh my God, we're not separated. We are still together. We are still connected. That's profound. It's amazing. Oh, okay. Dale says, I haven't seen my pets in spirit, but my current living birds do. Oh, yes. Animals almost always perceive spirit animals. They're, you can actually watch them for telltale signs because they'll stare and they'll make different noises. They'll make a racket because they're trying to alert us. But, a lot of times we were tuning that out. Lydia says, I also see my fur baby Bianco in little movies. Oh, I see him playing with his favorite toys. It's wonderful. The movies play out right in front of me at night while I'm in bed. Oh my God, I love that. So you're really so we psychically bond with our animals. And one of the most profound ways that you can communicate with your animals actually through sending a movie to them. So I think it's quite clever that Bianco is sending you little movies because those little movies express feeling. And so many animals don't understand the English language or any language for that matter. They understand feeling or pictures. Like if you put in your mind's eye a picture of you holding your baby and petting him, feeding him, and they feel that. Whereas your words, they're like, huh? So it's all about the imagery that helps them understand what you're trying to convey. So that is amazing that you guys have that set up or established, and that Bianco knows to send you movies. So try that back, Lydia. Send Bianco a movie of you receiving everything and understanding how to convey and how to communicate back and forth this way. Dale says, my sister said, was she the woman with the apron? And I said, yes, I thought she was. I believe my sister saw her at some point too. She didn't look like my grandmother or great grandmother. Oh, interesting. Okay. Um, and Lydia says, something Bianco shows up. Oh, sometimes Bianco shows up solid and sometimes in movies. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, do try that, Lydia. Try to send a movie back. Just create it in your head and then just imagine like it's in a little funnel going to Bianco and see how that works. Uh, she says that makes perfect sense. I've been having so many new spiritual experiences these past few months. Yeah, me too. You get to a certain place and you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then you kind of get used to that. And it's wonderful and you appreciate it. But you think like that's all there is. And then, whoo, something else unfolds. And you're like, oh my God, next level. So much fun. All right, you guys. So I want to thank you for tuning in and being here. One more here. Let's see. Dale says, my mother was resting on her bed one day and heard my late brother's voice right up against her ear say, Mama. Oh, yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. And that would be resting in bed in between sleep and wake. That's when we're most receptive to spiritual sight, spiritual hearing, spiritual feeling, all of it. That's why I often tell the bereaved to take extra naps. It's not just to help them lift their grief, but it is to help them tune in. The more time you can spend in the theta brainwave in between wake and sleep, the more likely you are to have your own spiritual experience. Whew. Okay, you guys. So I just like to close this session out and thank you so much for coming here and joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you missed the beginning, you can always watch the replay and get all the information, juicy stuff here. I really appreciate it and want to remind you that your loved ones are still with you and that you can learn to see them. So if you would like to learn how to mediumship scry, like I teach in my mediumship scrying course, look at the link right below this video. It's a wonderful course. It's all on video and I have PDFs to help you follow. Many people ask, can you do this alone? Yes, you definitely can, but that would be more along the lines of regular mirror scrying. Okay, it can be done that way though. I highly, highly recommend doing it with another person. So, and if you buy the course, I don't mind if you share it with a friend if you're both watching it together. I don't want you sharing the link, but if you're both together watching it, that's absolutely fine so that you two can practice together because having that other person is essential for the real spicy formula, like really getting things going. But you can, knowing what you learn in this course, it is similar to the mirror scrying, but it will set it apart because you'll have some different techniques to use while you're doing that. So again, that's mediumship scrying. That's in my spiritual academy, and the link is below this video. All right, you guys, I just want to thank you so much. Thank you, Lydia. She says, thank you so much. We're so grateful for this time together. Well, I am so grateful that you joined us. And Dale says, you're always a bright light, Diana, and have helped so much. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. And thank you for joining, Dale. I appreciate you. All right. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much. And I will see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye. Have a great night.